I'm creating this delightful table using my tiny spindle leg method. I like the width of this side table, so I'm taking some measurements from it. I cut out a square tabletop to give me an idea of the space it would take up in the cottage. I am also trying to decide if I want 2 chairs or just 1. I probably should have 2 chairs just in case there are some extra guests. I'm using my spindle pattern from a previous video to create the legs for this table. I only need to make 2 since I've already made 2 in the other video. Sometimes holding it so tightly my fingers just get tired and I let go. Just have to re-roll that part. Here's a quick little trick that I've been doing lately when I've been paper quilling. I'll just put some glue on my finger and twirl it around. It helps hold it until I get a chance to finish the leg. I'm getting some height measurements off of this side table. I need to create a pattern for the table skirt. I'm using a decorative piece from the bed to give it some cute details. And once I have the pattern, I cut out strips from cereal box that are the same height to help create them faster. I need 4 skirt pattern pieces total. They'll eventually have the legs joined to them. On one of the strips, I trace the pattern out 4 times. Then I cut them all at once and glue them down to another strip of cereal box. Repeat the process of cutting them out, gluing them down to a strip of the cereal box, and cutting them out again until I have the desired thickness. And I believe I did around 3 layers. Some cereal box is thinner and may take more layers. After I had all of my skirt pieces made, I sanded them a little on the decorative side to soften the hard edge. I'm drawing on some decorative designs on each side. They would look just fine even without it. Now I'm going to create what I think is referred to as the knee of the leg, this little square section at the top. I'm using a double thickness of foam board. I'm cutting out 4 of them, 1 for each leg. The height of them depends upon the height that you need your leg. I changed my blade to make sure that I got nice even cuts on the ends. If you're using a ruler like me, you may want to use a double thickness of scrap foam on each side to keep your ruler flat and not wobbling around. Please be careful though. I had some strips of heavy cardstock in my scrap bin that I wanted to use up, and I'm going to use them to cover the sides where the foam is exposed. I leave one of the small ends uncovered since it won't show anyway. When all of the exposed foam is covered, I glue one side to a piece of cardstock to cover that side. Then I cut it away next to the edge and I glue down the opposite side. That way it's completely covered in cardstock, except the top, as I mentioned, wasn't necessary. I sand all of the hard edges on the sides and the corners. Here's how all the knees of the table look. If you don't want to make the knee with the foam board, you can use a square piece of wood like this to cut the knee pieces from. I didn't show it, but I painted over the design I drew with some watered down paper clay to make it look kind of like carved wood. I drilled a hole in the center of the bottom of each one of the knee pieces. Then I glued the leg pieces onto each one. I like to make sure mine are really tight, just in case the glue isn't doing its job. Here's how the leg is looking at this point. These are the 2 legs I made in my previous video on how to make spindle legs. In case you haven't seen it, I will link it at the end of this video for you. I have noticed that when I make the knees out of the foam board, that no matter how exactly I drill the hole, they are always off. I think it's because the foam board papers and glue run down the center. So I mark the side that has the larger lip on it, the back, and then I just face it inward, and then you never know. I just realized I was making a rectangle table instead of a square one and had to shorten 2 of my skirt pieces. I'm going to use a piece of scrap foam board to glue the leg sections to the shorter skirt pieces first. That way the apron is set back just a little since the leg is thicker. I make sure to keep the top of the skirt even with the leg while I'm gluing it. I added a little bit of glue on the back side where the legs join, just for a little added strength. When those two sections I created have dried, I give them a generous coat of wood glue. Now I'm gluing the longer skirt pieces to the leg section. I can't use scrap foam board this time to set back the apron pieces. So you can always measure and mark it or just eyeball it. It's okay if it's not exact. I'm painting the lower section of the table before I glue the top on. It just makes it easier for me. Here's how the lower section of my table looks complete. I'm taking some measurements so I know what size to cut the tabletop. I made sure to add extra for the overhang on all 4 of the sides. Then I cut a strip of cereal box the width of the table. Then I measured the length of the table and cut it from the strip. When I was sure I liked the size of the tabletop, I glued it down to the remaining strip of cereal box. That way my tabletop will be 2 layers thick. I cut the 3rd layer a little bit smaller all the way around. That way it creates a little lip. Then I sanded the edges just to soften it a little bit. I also decided that I wanted to seal the table with Mod Podge, so here I'm just painting the lower section. Here I'm painting the tabletop. I think it would have been easier if I would have glued it to the table first and then painted it. When the tabletop was dry, I glued it to the top of the table. I made sure to center it. I think it turned out so cute. I can't wait to add some food and drinks. I already had these chairs, so I figured it would save me from having to make some new ones. The little table and chairs really helps fill up that empty space in the cottage. I had this idea come to me one night when I needed to be sleeping, of course. I wanted to quill some cups with hot cocoa. Start by cutting out piece A. I am using a quilling tool with a small diameter rolling pin. That way there won't be too big of a hole left behind. Here I'm rolling piece A onto the pin. Then cut piece B and glue it right next to where piece A ended, like this. Roll up piece B and glue it. This is what you have so far. Next, cut out piece C and apply glue next to where B ended. And glue piece C right next to where B ended. You should notice that piece C is a little taller than piece B was. And roll up piece C, keeping the bottom edges even. You should have a little lip at the top. This is the cup lip. Cut out piece D next. The black line on one side is to mark the straight edge. Hopefully that makes it easier for you. And glue piece D next to the seam where piece C ended, keeping the edge with the black line even with the bottom of the edge of the cup. Roll up piece D, and this is how it looks. It doesn't go all the way to the top. It is helping to taper the cup to make the bottom half of the cup appear wider. Now cut out the last piece, piece E, and glue piece E right next to the seam, but keep it near the bottom. Here's how that piece looks. It's a triangular piece, so it will create a rounded bottom to the cup. It should look like this now. I took some of the paper that I had cut off from the pattern sheet and I applied glue to one side, and then I folded it over. Then glued to some more paper. It will be 3 layers thick. Cut a short little triangle piece that will become the handle. I don't have a pattern piece, unfortunately, for the handle since it's just a small little piece. Glue it over the seam with the pointed end up and let it dry completely. I took the handle of a paintbrush and I curved the cup handle over it. Then I put a little bit of glue on the cup down near the bottom and glued the cup handle in place. If you have any extra, you can trim it off like I did. And here's how the quilled cup of cocoa or tea or coffee looks at this point. I covered the entire cup with wood glue. You can glue like I'm gluing with a squeeze bottle, or you can paint it on. If you do happen to paint it on, I would do 2 thin coats, since painting 1 coat would be thinner than just squeezing the glue on. Once you have it covered in glue, let it dry. I gave it a couple of coats of paint in the color that I wanted my cup to be. Then paint whatever color you want your cocoa or your coffee or tea to be in the cup, on the top of the cup. Here I'm trying something new. I took some paper clay and mixed it with Elmer's Glue All, and I was trying to make it look like whipped topping. I think it ended up, though, looking like a marshmallow that melted on the top of the cocoa instead, but that turns out okay too. And here are the cocoa mix boxes. They're assembled just like a regular box. I cut them out and then I glued the sides together. I made all of the flaps be a different color so it would be easier to see when you're folding them over and gluing them in place. You may decide that you want to leave yours open and put some fake cocoa packets into it. If you choose to glue them shut, you will need to fill them with some scrap paper, or sometimes I've even used cotton. I made something I think looked like a cocoa packet with some of the scrap paper, and then I tore across the top to make it look like it was used. I really wish that I would have made a cocoa mix packet printout to go with the box. Maybe next time. I think they came out pretty convincing though. What do you think? I used some diamond glaze and painted the cups of cocoa and the boxes. Painting the boxes is optional, but I wanted mine to have a little shine and I didn't want to use packing tape. So my suggestion, if you do choose to paint yours with a diamond glaze, I would paint them first before assembling them. I also suggest that you spray them with hairspray to set the color too. I'm very excited to dress this table. I start off by gluing a checkered tablecloth onto it. I didn't apply glue to the whole surface, I just glued the little corners over the edge just to hold it in place. This little checkered tablecloth matches the little cloth that's on the side table. I figured since I had a pink theme going on, I should probably try to keep it pink. Now the fun part, deciding where I want to place everything. These little cups of cocoa came out so stinking cute. Believe it or not, this is the very first time that I have made paper cups with a drink inside that actually turned out. I'm so excited now. Now let's see how it looks in the cottage. So adorable. I'm sad now that it's over. I had such a fun time playing. Come and have some hot cocoa with me and enjoy some of these calorie-free treats, won't you? Don't forget to get your free pattern when you go. Thank you so much for watching and joining me. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.